I can tell you we do have a title, we do have song titles, we do have 20 to 25 songs demoed, we do have a producer, we do have a location, we have an artist, everything's set up, all the visuals, everything, but it's all secret.
So let's talk about this album, Vengeance Falls. Comes out October 15th on Roadrunner. And you guys decided to work with David Draiman of Disturbed. Some might call that a controversial choice. I mean, I'm sure you guys are friends with him, and they're like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. He's a successful musician. Maybe some of that will rub off on us. Is that why why did you guys decide to work with him?
Like you said, if he's a controversial choice, we've always been a controversial band ourselves, so we go hand in hand together.
What's going to make Vengeance Falls stand apart from previous albums?
I think the fact that when we look back at it now, when we listen to it in retrospect, we find that it contains the best ingredients of everything we've ever done across all 5 records. It wasn't an intentional thing to do that. The fact that I think all the legacy of what we've done is prevalent in a record, that's going to be a good thing for a fantasy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Trivium Retrospective on Renegade Jukebox. As usual, my name's Nick.
I'm Mike.
And this time, there's not going to be very much of a where we left off last time, because obviously this time we're diving deep into Vengeance Falls, their 6th album. And like I just mentioned, there's not very much to say in that sense. So, Mike, if you're wanting to know any exciting history, I got nothing for you this time.
Which is understandable.
At the same time, though, we do have like enough interesting stuff between Ascendancy and the Crusade, or like between the Crusade and Shogun. Like, other than like cool tours that we would have covered in the last episode, there's not really much. It's pretty much wrap up touring behind the last album, hop into recording the next one.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all you need to know, except for one other thing.
Do you want me to introduce our special guest producer this time?
Yes, please.
Our producer, ladies and germs, is none other than David Draiman of Disturbed. Yep, that David Draiman. Yeah, there's no way we can talk about this album without having to talk about Disturbed. And especially given, I just want to say, recent events. I'll just put it this way. Let's mainly try to focus on like our opinion of the band at that point, because full spoiler alert, more than likely, once we're done the Trivium Retrospective, there probably will be a What Happened to Disturbed episode coming down the pipeline.
Oh yeah, but given where we are at this time, the last album that they made was Asylum. So by that point, I was like pretty comfortably a fan of their catalog. At the time, I'm pretty sure my 2 favorite albums were 10,000 Fists and Believe.
Mine were just definitely the last 2 at that point. Indestructible and Asylum just had way more guitar solos, way more double bass at that point. It did feel more like an accessible gateway to the new wave of American heavy metal. Disturbed were smart enough to get away from the new metal shtick at that point by the mid-2000s, and they actually did a pretty good job of staying away from, just being pigeonholed to just being that band that wrote Down with the Sickness.
Agreed.
But at this point in end of 2012 going into 2013, that is, I just kind of look back on this album in hindsight and go, I don't blame them for wanting to get a big name producer like him, especially since this is, fun fact, his first and only outing as a producer. So take with that what you will, children. But like at this point, I don't blame Matt, Corey, Paulo, and Nick for going, yeah, we're getting a guy who has had 4 back-to-back #1 albums and is headlining arenas. Yeah, Disturbed's on hiatus at this point. And spoiler alert, our personal opinions, they should have been on hiatus a lot longer after, but I can't really blame Trivium for going in this direction. Especially this is where we constantly start hearing the talk of like who's going to be the next big festival headliners. And occasionally Trivium would come up in the conversation. Not all the time, but occasionally they would.
So yeah, with that being said, it does make sense why they would want someone with the pedigree of Draiman to give them a boost in like for this next record.
Say whatever you want about Disturbed. Their songs immediately get in your head. So
Exactly.
I think that was basically the goal of pretty much just make an accessible version of In Waves. I was telling you this off air even. It kind of just feels like Draiman just heard the accessible songs on In Waves, like Watch the World Burn or Black or Built to Fall even. Kind of felt like he just took that, made that the blueprint of this album.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But before we really hop into like our thoughts on the record itself, we might as well bring up the album art and then really our initial thoughts, I guess. So album art this time, it's very obviously it's just the Trivium logo, but it's a bunch of them falling out of the sky into mountains and they look like rockets, but they're robots inside.
It is an admittedly cool album art.
Yeah, this is more, it still feels like Trivium. It's not like the people who want to make this sound like it's just going to be Trivium sounding like Disturbed the entire album. No, it is not. It is different. There are differences. I guess, though, we might as well tear the Band-Aid off. I did kind of give a little bit away there, but again, just to be very upfront, it is a very get in, get out kind of album. It's only about like what 48-ish minutes. And
About, yeah.
And honestly, it does its job well in not overstaying its welcome, but at the same time, it ends up feeling more like it has really good songs that you pick out your favorites from rather than a full album that you're immediately wanting to go back. Like, I'm not gunning to go back to Vengeance Falls nearly as much as I am a lot of the earlier stuff or even a lot of the later stuff.
I will say, at the time that this album came out, I was listening to it more often than I do now. But that's because it was in the honeymoon era, and I just wanted to get as many spins in as possible.
No, I understand. I kind of want to bring this up just as in hindsight, this winds up making more sense in the grand scheme of things. And I kind of want to just have it be the prefix for why we're going to defend Silence in the Snow in the next episode. The change in vocal style from this to Silence in the Snow having no growling, this is not something that's very shocking if you look back in hindsight. There was already a lot less growling on this album, especially when you compare it to, say, like Shogun, Ascendancy, or In Waves.
I would almost describe the growling on this record as more like peppered in as opposed to it being its own like full ingredient.
Thank you. Yeah, and as much as I love when Matt and Corey get to growl and just shriek on an album, it is basically just saved for like isolated moments. It does kind of feel more like they just went, okay, let's focus more on Matt singing, but then we can pepper it in with the growling. But I guess just without further ado, we might as well hop into the album, even though it's kind of bizarre that we pretty much just kick things off without a proper intro.
Yeah, the last time they did that was on the Crusade, but even that had a little bit of a actually no, I take that back. Ignition just gets up and goes. And that's kind of the same thing with Brave the Storm.
Well, for me, Ignition starts things off better than, because Brave the Storm, it is a good song. It's just, I am going to be honest, I think I do prefer Ignition to this song, but just to cut to the chase around this song and really the album as a whole, in hindsight, this is probably one of the least progressive minded Trivium albums. Like, this very much does feel more just like, let's make something that's, I don't want to say accessible because that'll just end up making it sound like it's some octane core garbage that nobody should be paying attention to, but this more just feels like cool intro riff, cut to the vocals for the first verse, have the first chorus be infectious and catchy too, and then have the second verse have, like, for songwriting terms, the breakdown, and then have the guitar solo, and then go back to the chorus one last time before cutting the song off.
And it's not a bad like template for the song. It's just very meat and potatoes, especially in relation to previous records.
But even Ascendancy, even that was probably the most basic with this lineup, sans Nick Augusto, obviously. That was also the case with Ascendancy, but at the same time, there was enough interesting songwriting bits and energy to like really like hook you in that much quicker. But yeah, the song, it has a really cool groovy riff. The lyrics, it really doesn't feel that out of line with what was done on In Waves. Structurally, it is interesting to have Matt only growl on the riff before the solo. And then as well, it starts off well enough launching you into that groove riff at the beginning. I'll say this throughout the majority of this episode, though. It does feel like Nick Augusto's drumming doesn't go nearly as off the rails as it did on the last album.
Yeah, he feels, I don't want to say handcuffed, but I can't think of a better
it's
word to
handcuffed.
describe. Yeah.
It's absolutely handcuffed. It feels like you're taking a death metal grind drummer and just making him have to play more basic stuff compared to what you were doing prior. But at the same time, I don't want to make it sound like we're just hating this song, because I do actually like it. The riffing, again, it sounds great. It leads to some really solid guitar solos, obviously. Since it is based around the chorus, it forces the verses themselves to be just as earwormy. And structurally, again, it is interesting to just have Matt only do that growl section right before the guitar solo. But yeah, this really does kind of establish them pushing growling back. I think this was a conscious decision before Silence in the Snow.
Like, even the fact that this is like the first single too, they're really telling you, don't expect too much growling, but also don't expect us to slouch when it comes to musicianship.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like Trivium are just phoning this in. There's not a point in their catalog I would ever say that they were phoning it in at all. And I guess with Brave This Storm in mind, we might as well hop into the title track if you want to go first.
Yeah, so the title track, Vengeance Falls. I don't really have too much to say about this one other than I like the way it opens with that riff, and then just the vocals on here I really like. I like the verses that Matt sings, and I like the backup vocals, which I think is that Paulo on the recording?
Oh, are you talking during like the part where like it's sung during the chorus?
Yeah. No,
okay.
No, the verses.
There are parts, but again, just more. It's more Paulo's bass that I'm just paying way more attention to on these re-listens compared to the vocals. Sometimes it really does feel like let's just take In Waves, for example. The way he sings it live, it sounds like Matt just went in and did the clean vocals on the studio version. But I see what you're saying, but I wasn't really I was more just kind of going like, are you pointing out the growled part? Because that'd pretty clearly be Corey doing that.
Oh no, I'm talking about the clean stuff.
No, I got you. I was more paying attention for growling, honestly. But my thing I wanted to bring up with the vocals, this is where I'm gonna actually go out on a limb and stick up for any potential influence David Draiman would have had on this album. In particular, the way Matt sings the part "Our Vengeance Falls," like that pretty much straight up sounds like something Draiman would have sung on a Disturbed album.
Yeah, it's got that Draiman cadence to it.
Yeah, but here's the other thing too. It's still showing off what Matt can do vocally. And just knowing that how much of a big power metal guy he is, and just it almost could just be a hint at like what they would do on Shadow of the Abattoir in the Court of the Dragon. I bring this up too because I do have friends who their go-to metal style is power metal, and they also just happen to like Disturbed at the same time, weirdly.
Yeah, I think if you're into power metal and Disturbed, but you haven't listened to Trivium yet, this album might be a good jumping on point.
You know what? Now that you mention it, now that I just kind of like, I didn't really connect the dots there. Just in hindsight, you might have a good point there, to be honest. Like, at least too, this also has the nerve to go into a full thrash section on the guitar solo. And at this point, again, this is really when you start to feel like Nick Augusto is really watering his drumming down. Like, even the double bass parts, it's sparsely placed.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like the song. And again, the guitar solos are amazing. And it kind of goes back to that formula I told you about in previous episodes we've done, where it's pretty obvious which solo's Matt and which one's Corey, and just how much character both of them have as guitar players. Like, those parts are cool. But then we get to an absolute classic Trivium song.
Yes. We are on Strife. And to this day, I'm pretty sure you can confirm this, that this is the only song from this record that they have pretty much locked into their live set.
Pretty much. It's a live staple for them, really. I mean, for one, that awesome twin riff at the beginning, that's how heavy metal should sound. Whenever I tell somebody how heavy metal should have awesome twin guitars that sound melodic but aren't afraid to be aggressive, chunky, and heavy. Also have growls, but also, have them come through comprehensibly, but at the same time not afraid to have dirt under their nails. And also, if it is going to have just, for lack of a better phrase, clean singing, have it be something that's not whiny and have something that's, well written lyrically. This is exactly that. But like, even when it gets down into that groove on the drop D sharp string, like it's powerful, like just as much as that opening riff is. And then the lyrics too, I also have to compliment, and I mean all of them. The verses themselves are just as catchy as the chorus itself to this, as like it's immediately memorable. It's never feeling like it's empty fluff. And then the way the chorus bridges everything together, I mean, especially when the lead carries that last minute of the song, like the hey chants perfectly bridge into, this is where we got to do a sample of the guitar solo so we can show off everybody what we're talking about. So here you guys go. Like, it's a top tier track from this band. I mean, it's understandable why this was chosen as one of the pre-release hype singles behind it and why it's a live staple. But now this song deserves every bit of love that it gets.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, kind of like what you said. If someone were to ask me what heavy metal is supposed to sound like, Just give them this and send them on their way.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue or complain about that. That's pretty much perfectly said. I'm pretty much tempted to just say, want to hop into the next song because I don't think we're going to be able to. I don't want to just keep yammering. I just want to keep talking about the really good stuff on this record.
And honestly, as this album progresses, we really do get to the really good stuff. And it begins with No Way to Heal.
It's another earwormy song on all fronts. Like, I'll be honest, even if I don't hear this song for a long period of time, I still remember all of it. I still remember, I feel the ice cold dagger make its way between my ribs again. I still remember that, even if I don't hear it for like a year or two, and it's just never left my head 12 years after this album's been out.
I said this to Nick off air, but I was shocked to learn that this song doesn't get played live as often because it honestly is about as good as Strife, if not maybe a little bit better for me personally.
Well, like, on top of that, everybody in the band is showing off what they're capable of. Like, while Matt and Corey are riffing away on the pre-chorus section, you hear Paulo do this really cool bass noodle off in the background during that part, and just adds to the momentum and the speed of the song. It's a case of, yeah, it's a song following a big lead-off single, but it never sounds like filler.
Nope.
And now we might as well hop into the one that everybody accuses of being just a Disturbed B-side. At least we can say it would sound similar enough to one of the good ones.
Yeah, that's the thing about To Believe. Like, I've even said it probably when I first heard the song, like, yeah, of all the tracks, this one does sound the most like Disturbed. But I mean that complimentary, as opposed to how other people have described that.
Well, I even also told you this. Thankfully, it still sounds like Trivium, despite those comparisons.
Exactly.
I do like the riff during the pre-chorus and how it transitions back into the intro riff for the chorus. All of it still organically flows together and works well. So songwriting-wise, Trivium are still showing ambition, even if this is a more simplified version of how they sound. But pretty much every pro I can say about this song, I can copy and paste my notes. Like, just everybody's still bringing their A game to their instruments.
Pretty much.
And even if we were to agree with those comparisons to Disturbed, you would think that the band would have just been like, oh, let's capitalize on that and just have that be the big single with the music video and everything. They didn't do that here.
Which, that's fine.
That's the smart decision, is more just kind of my point I'm getting at.
Yeah, like, what they did by not releasing this as a single is they didn't, like, invite those comparisons.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a bit of a story behind the next song on the album. I remember vividly going from To Believe, really liking the album at this point. We're on the 6th track, and holy shit, we're already halfway through this album this quick. So I just remember hearing the acoustic guitar come in. I remember just being thrown off and petrified and cynical as all hell that this was just going to be an All That Remains style ballad at the time. And I was like, oh no, please don't. No, don't do not like this. Thankfully, this was a ghost walking situation by Lamb of God and not that.
Yeah. Thank God they didn't pull that.
In general, looking back on all of these albums, Trivium have never done a straight up ballad.
Yeah, no. The closest they've gotten were the Dying in Your Arms, but even then, those aren't really ballads.
No, like, not even Of All These Yesterdays. Like, I would never say a lot of the stuff on In Waves, I would never say is ballad territory. But at the end of this war, I might not sound nearly as exciting. Like, I can pretty much say the same thing about To Believe here. The great musicianship and songwriting is still there. At least the second verse, they actually let our fellow Nick do more double bass than just the pre-chorus sections. Also, this does have more twin leads than To Believe does, so that's an added bonus point.
I would say the twin leads and the double bass are the tiebreaker for these two tracks.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to bring this up when we were talking about To Believe. That's the return of Socially Conscious Trivium, actually.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, that song is actually about the Sandy Hook shooting and the awful responses that tragedy had. So, yeah, just throwing that back out there. At least that's a return to at least some stuff that was going on the Crusade. Again, proving my point, Trivium don't fully abandon things, even if a lot of people say, yeah, that didn't work for me.
Exactly.
But kind of like you said a little bit, I would actually say this is the point in the album where it's noticeable that the back half of the album only gets stronger.
Yeah. So the next track is probably one of the tracks I would eventually call a favorite, Through Blood and Dirt and Bone.
Which, for whatever reason, back in the day, I would always go through blood, dirt, and bone rather than have the ands in between. I don't know why that always threw me off back then. But other than that, we even brought this up, which is bizarre to me. Trivium rarely, if ever, play this.
Yeah. Again, kind of shocked.
Just the lyrics to the entire song, it's so well written. The riffs on all fronts, from the groove, the harmonized leads, they all sound like a band making another huge leap with their sound without compromising the heaviness or the aggression. The growling is still pretty at the forefront compared to the rest of the album. And at least it's one of those more prominently growled tracks right before it hits you with the guitar solo that just makes it feel like it's crescendoing.
Oh, yeah. And I think it might have one of my favorite choruses, too.
Oh, exactly. It's just a really strong tune that I don't know if it's just because they decided to release it like just right in time before they were about to go on Mayhem Fest for that year.
It's possible.
I guess, but I still stand by this. I do miss the days when live tour music videos were just a rare thing rather than this is the only way we're able to actually market the damn album.
Yeah. I miss those days, too.
But our next tune, Villainy Thrives, I'm gonna open up with some dark humor, but then we're just gonna get dark. You down with that, Mike?
Let's do it.
I'm gonna gladly make this joke. Is this song secretly just about Tim Lambesis? If not, can we just attribute the meaning of the song to him?
I'm not opposed to that.
Now, if you don't mind me hopping back into serious territory, I don't have a ton to say about the music that I can't already just copy paste and just say again. Again, the musicianship's really solid. The groove is really good to it too. The guitar solos are great, but this kind of ends up being like the departure for me, similar to like Departure from Ascendancy, and why the lyrics end up making it the show stealer of the album for me. So I say that because it's all era appropriate, and just knowing that Matt loves metal, he loves hardcore. He even has an appreciation for a lot of emo bands. He loves My Chemical Romance. I know that, even with him doing the emo parody that we covered during the Ember to Inferno episode. But I have to bring these up, and I'm going to go more serious about Tim. I don't know how deep into the writing process that they would have been during Tim's arrest, but you would think maybe that would have had an influence on this song.
I mean, it does kind of makes sense given like the timeline of events.
But I'm gonna go even extremer. So the only reason I bring up the emo genre at that point is because right around the time they go in to record this album, guess who gets arrested in the UK? I'm about to go there, and guys, full context, I don't like talking about this kind of stuff. I really don't, but I only bring it up for one, for context, and two, to really drive home a point, especially about the lyrical content, especially with the really heavy part with the lyrics, I want to ruin the rapist, punish the criminal, violate the abuser and the murderer. I also can't help but feel like the meaning of this song you could apply to Ian Watkins from Lost Prophets.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that while I was listening to this, or even when the album came out, but going back and again tracing back the sequence of events, yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
And that's somebody who keeps his ear to the underground and like pays attention to like what's going on in metal. He pays attention to what's going on in music. And given how disgusting and huge of a story that was, like, to this day, it's a really tough story to talk about, especially when you are telling somebody who would not have known at the time that was happening. Like, this was just when we all started like getting smartphones and started using Facebook and Instagram to get our news.
Mhm.
But like, even around that time, like, that was pretty much covered nonstop by Metal Injection. So like, I would think that Matt probably would have seen that pop up and go, I'm inspired to write a song about wanting to kill this motherfucker.
He was writing what we were all thinking.
Pretty much wanting to absolutely murder the human equivalent of a Serbian film. But to transition into happier topics, probably the two best songs on the album.
Oh, 100%. So the penultimate song on the main record, not counting the bonus tracks, Incineration, The Broken World.
For me, this is where the album starts to be a lot more progressive and musically interesting. It gets away from the basic song structure from a lot of the front half of this record. And I think, yeah, the longer song length gives the band more opportunity to show off. The faster tempo of the song, it really helps Matt's clean vocals stand out. I want to say it's about 2 minutes and 30 seconds deep before we even get what we would call a chorus on this thing.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Honestly, man, when it does land that chorus, it lands because you waited that long to hear it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It just has that much of an impact.
But it's really only used at 2 points in the song, halfway through and close towards the end.
Which is kind of rare for even the most like progressive Trivium tracks. They at least like have a tight structure and then just experiment outside of the margins.
But because we also want to show Paulo the appreciation and praise he deserves, normally me and Mike kind of work out the samples behind the scenes, and I just kind of go, I don't know if that's going to work. But this was one of those cases where I'm like, I'm enough of a control freak with the samples as is. I'm actually going to let him have this one because, yeah, it kind of just earns it with how good the bass solo is. So here it is for everybody. I honestly don't have much else to say about how good this song is. ends up being probably one of Trivium's more underappreciated deep cuts.
Agreed. And speaking of deep cuts, Nick actually showed me the set list for one of their COVID live streams, and this is how they end that set list.
Which in hindsight, if you're going to avoid playing all of your big hits and just play stuff that nobody's ever going to get to hear live, this is probably the best possible choice you could have picked to end the show with.
Exactly.
And I don't have any better transition to end with. Holy shit, we're at the end of this album this quick?
Right?
I am not used to Trivium albums being only 10 songs long. Please don't go back to that formula.
Yeah, I prefer my Trivium records a nice 12 or 13.
I would actually just say keep it at 11. I feel like 11 is perfect.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like even if it is just a solid intro to get things going, keep it at 11.
But with that being said, we are on to
Wake, The End Is Nigh this is the only song I can think of as the logical endpoint of the record beyond just the title having The End Is Nigh in it.
Yeah, just musically, it sounds like a closer.
Well, with having a clean played section, letting it build mood rather than just launching you immediately into growling leads and fast drumming, it does make the last chunk of this song feel substantial. It makes it feel like it had a payoff to it. And really, if you think about it, this is another case of the album taking a risk, and it doesn't really have a chorus other than the "it's only getting worse, behold this bitter curse, the end is nigh."
Yeah, it's not really a chorus, but it also doesn't matter because that part is just great.
Yeah, it just feels like it's built to this massive conclusion that you've waited the entire record to get to. It really does feel like, though, it's a constant verse going and going. But the way it's focused on these verses and just musically how cool it is to have that riff change up in the last 2 minutes of the song and melting your face off with more guitar solos.
Yeah, ending the song with solos is just a perfect send-off for the record.
And again, it's still just kind of bizarre to me that this is only a 10-song Trivium album. Like, no, it kind of is no frills. It is just simplified compared to the rest of their records.
Which is one of the reasons why, I mean, we've been saying this about every record, but this one especially, I like having the bonus tracks to fill out the rest of the hour.
Yeah, exactly. So just fun fact too, Mike, I had to get the special edition as soon as the album came out. So bizarre enough, I never really jammed the bonus tracks as much, aside from the cover, which we'll obviously get to, but at least the title for our first bonus track is apt.
Yeah, No Hope for the Human Race.
Which one thing I appreciate about the harmonized lead work on this is Matt and Corey use it on the chorus rather than the riff opening the track itself, which is a cool little dynamic that I dig. It is a bummer, though, that the most exciting double bass work Nick Augusto gets to do on this is just buried underneath a guitar solo, though.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
But it is a solid tune too. I know I normally don't like people asking me like if you had to switch out the bonus track for a main track on the album, which would it be? I would actually switch to Believe and this song out with each other.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of more tempted to say that about the next song, which I think is the best of the two like original bonus tracks.
Oh, as I'm exploding.
Like, it has the nerve to start off with Matt growling, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then launching you into a pit-worthy riff and just thrashing your face off for the first, like, minute and a half.
I just love how angry both of these two songs are.
It's fast-paced. It's energetic. The main riff, like, even when it drops down briefly for that chorus section, it just picks things up seamlessly. The solo work on it's great. Again, I don't have much to say about it other than if I do have to swap it out for a main album track, I would probably pick this one of the two.
Yeah.
Honestly, in hindsight, given how excited I am, you know what, I'm going full fucking rogue. Copy and paste. I normally don't do this right as we're recording and would ask that we edit this out, but fuck it. It's going in my best songs section. Spoiler alert for everybody.
I have no objections.
Excellent. Now, we're hopping back into covers, and this time, Trivium are doing two polar opposites of each other. So, the first one. So, we gotta talk about the Misfits here. So, I do really like the Misfits, especially like mainly Glenn Danzig era Misfits. If it wasn't for he who shall not be named, the ultra Trump supporting Nazi who took over for singing for the Misfits. But even with that said, I do kind of like those albums, even if the singer is a piece of shit. Even if God, what is the song? Like something her bones. I'm totally drawing a blank on it right now for whatever reason. But now the Misfits I do really like, but I also kind of can't help but feel like the more raw punk production it's kind of something I have to be in the mood for to hear.
Yeah. I would say for me personally, I like the songwriting of the Misfits, but I like when their songs are recorded by other artists, i.e. Metallica or Trivium.
In this case, Trivium decided to pull a Metallica and just be like, fuck it, we'll do the Misfits better than the actual Misfits. And to correct myself, it is Dig Up Her Bones with Michael Graves on vocals. So sorry, Mike, one of your namesakes is an absolute piece of garbage.
That's all right. We don't claim all mics.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, even us Knicks don't claim all Knicks. So Trivium decided to cover both Skulls and We Are 138, which, again, taking a page out of the Metallica playbook of doing Last Caress and Green Hell. It's tough to comment on musicianship over a really simple punk tune. But at the same time, Trivium decided to just make it energetic as hell, fun, and worthy pit starters. Like, especially when it drops into We Are 138, it just goes off the goddamn rails.
Yeah, and I feel like Nick had a lot of fun bashing the drums on that part.
I think he does more double bass on this entire song than he does a lot of the main record.
Wow.
But like, it even has the nerve to have a full-blown guitar solo that just melts your face off. Like, I don't even think the Misfits, even for as good of a guitar player as Doyle can be, I don't think he could pull off something like this.
Oh yeah, no.
I mean, what more can I say other than, Mommy, can I go out and kill tonight? I have to growl for Mike every time we record one of these. I'm not sorry.
It's a rule.
Now we get into our last song for the evening and our last cover, which, Mike, is this a Draiman choice?
Hard to say, because for those who may not know, Disturbed has done some pretty iconic covers in the past. They did Shout by Tears of Fear, obviously Land of Confusion by Genesis.
And let's not include one that we're going to bring up in our What Happened, but I'll bring up two actually really good ones that people don't bring up nearly as much. Their cover of Midlife Crisis by Faith No More is awesome, and their cover of Living After Midnight by Judas Priest is also really good. It's fateful as hell, but when you have the nerve to open up with the Painkiller drum intro and then go into Living After Midnight, I'm not going to bitch.
I was actually just going to bring that up.
But we say that because Trivium cover REM.
It's a very bizarre choice. It's not a bizarre choice for Matt to just be into this band because we talked about his affection for indie rock in the In Waves episode, but
also his live covers too. He does like a ton of outside the box stuff. Like if you look up his Full Sail University, or I think it's Full Sail University, whatever it is in Florida. Thank you. He does a cover of Damn It by Blink-182. He does a Linkin Park cover. He does a cover of a Depeche Mode song. So outside the box stuff isn't really new to Matt, but it is kind of newish to Trivium.
Yeah. And I don't think I'm saying anything like revolutionary when I say, yeah, this is a good song, but the arrangement of the cover is outside of maybe some growls here and there. It's a pretty straight rendition.
Except for the faster tempo and like chunkier guitars.
Sure, those are like the details that they peppered in.
Yeah, it's Trivium really taking an alternative rock slow jam that bizarrely is now being played on classic rock stations. It injects it with a ton of energy, more guitar work, and it thankfully avoids the trope of those horrendous pop goes punk cover albums where I feel also that this cover shows off what Matt can do vocally pretty well.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that.
Like, whether it's Matt's idea to do an outside the box cover with Trivium or David Draiman suggesting they kind of go the Disturbed route of doing something that's like, hey, let's take a classic song from our generation and just modernize it for the metal audience. They do nail this cover pretty well.
They do.
But I guess with that in mind, we are officially out of this record, and I feel like we did our damnedest to make it as interesting as we could. So, Mike, do you want to go first with best songs, and do you want to guess that we're probably going to have the same ones?
Before we get there, I do want to make a mention of the 2023 remaster that Trivium put out.
Thank you. I almost forgot.
So yeah, for the 10th anniversary of this record, Trivium put out a remaster in 2023 that frankly sounds better than the original version.
Yeah, so I don't have notes that I'm just pretty much going to say this all off the cuff. So if there's any ums, ahs, or stutters, I am sorry, but pretty much the production on the remaster, we wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't noteworthy. And I was initially, when Mike brought it up to me, like, hey, can we do the remaster instead of the original? I'm like, dude, I've got the vinyl. I've got the album, ripped to my phone from my iTunes. I mean, I'm good, dude. Then I hear the remaster and I go, holy shit, this is better.
Yeah. Something that Nick, you said when we were listening to this is there's less clutter in the production. Like the instruments aren't like fighting for your attention.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel like the guitars feel more brittle in comparison to just going like, okay, let's have the riff be played, not have it be competing with the bass and the drums. So that way we have to make it sound more thin. We want the guitars to shimmer. His voice sounds better in the mix and everything. I don't know who did this remaster. I don't know if it was Josh Wilbur or if they asked Colin Richardson, hey, can you clean this up a bit better? Because I do know that Colin Richardson was working on Surgical Steel by Carcass at this point, and he basically got pulled away from that album to go mix this record, which kind of annoyed Carcass, but, crusty old British dudes are going to be crusty old British dudes. I say that with love. I love Carcass, don't get me wrong. But, you all get my point. But no, it's one of those cases where, you know what, I'm glad I listened to you on this one, Mike. The production is just infinitely better on the 10th anniversary version.
Yeah, I wouldn't have brought it up if it wasn't like a noticeable difference.
I guess with that in mind, again, I'm letting you go first for best songs.
Okay, so for best tracks, I'm going to go with No Way to Heal, Strife, Villainy Thrives, Incineration, and Wake the End is Nigh.
Ours were basically the same. You just missed through blood and dirt and bone. Like, holy shit, guys. Like, you know, me and Mike are locked in on this series when we basically just pick out the same best songs. And As I Am Exploding is the best bonus track on this.
Oh, yeah.
But before we loop back around to our conclusion, Mike, this is where you get to ask me about my second time seeing Trivium.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to know who else was playing that second time you saw the band.
So it was a co-headliner, no less. It was Trivium and Devil Driver. Then it was After the Burial with Justin Lowe before he tragically passed away in 2015, RIP. And the only time I have ever gotten to see this band, Silosis.
Wow, that is quite the lineup.
And I actually got my uncle to go with me to see it. I was just slowly getting him into Trivium and getting him accustomed to them. And I'll eventually get to the song that I won him over with this band. But that lineup was just so good, I couldn't miss this show. So I was amazed that I got to the front. I was amazed that I got the merch at the time that I did. I don't fit it anymore because I started going to the gym 2 years later. But now, like, that was, at the time, it was probably the best Trivium show I had ever seen, to be honest.
What was the first time that you met the band?
It wouldn't be until the next album, so we'll get to that.
Okay, noted.
But basically, you want me to just hop into the set list at this point?
Yeah.
So this time, because Vengeance Falls doesn't have an intro track, it's pretty much just this is where we get to show off Matt Heafy's nerdiness because of his love of Final Fantasy. He uses Divinity Eye from Final Fantasy VII as the intro, and then that goes straight into Throes of Perdition, and you can bet your ass my neck was destroyed by the end of that song.
Of course.
But immediately after that was Down from the Sky, which it's bizarre to me. The last time I saw them, they closed out with those two songs. This time they open with those two.
Interesting.
I just thought it was something really noteworthy. But this was my first time hearing anything off of the Crusade live. Was they played Becoming the Dragon right after. And then after that was Brave the Storm. And this was what made me Watch the World Burn more than I did at the time, actually. Like, this really won me over with that song.
Yeah, usually live performances will help with songs like that.
And then immediately after that, it was Strife, and then kind of the same thing ended up happening with Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation. I was like, okay, I really like Ascendancy, but I wasn't hot on the song when I initially. Oh my god, this thing's kicking ass, and then it cuts into the hi section of the song, and I'm just going, yeah, best song ever written. Let's go, let's fuck shit up, headbang, motherfucker. But then Kirisuit Gomen comes on next.
Ooh.
My neck was sore after the show, obviously. I could not move, and I was like, but no, that was badass to finally hear live. But the song that won my uncle over was Shogun.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, the fact that I'm getting to hear this live, what? Like, the amount of times I had heard Shogun all throughout high school, the amount of times I had listened to the album and the song isolated from the rest of the record, the fact that I'm finally hearing it live and it sounds this amazing and on point, it's incredible. Like, I don't remember very much or like key moments from hearing it live, but I'm just more like, I'm just loving every second of this.
Honestly, like, from what you've told me, the key moment is winning your uncle over with Shogun.
Exactly. But then we get to how Trivium should close their shows. The capsizing the sea intro starts, and then I'm like, oh shit, things are about to go. Shit already went down during Devil Driver. Shit's about to go down during this song. So like, this is where just like we're waiting for them to go on. We're waiting them to drop into it. They drop into In Waves, and everybody is. I'm in particular losing my goddamn mind. Like little 18-year-old Nick is just losing his shit headbanging like Corpse Grinder at this point.
Hell yeah.
And then to close out the show is Pull Harder on the Strings of Your Martyr, the obvious choice, and using One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy VII. Here's the catch, though. No, I did not meet the band, but Mike, I had something I needed to show you before, and I'll show it for nobody because nobody can see my webcam right now. But Mike, describe to everybody what I caught from Matt Heafy.
We got a guitar pick.
And I already got a bunch from Metallica the year before, so I just walked away from this show super happy.
Yeah, the mementos like that are just the best thing to walk away with.
It's a case of I really wish I had my ticket stub, even though it's been like 12 years since that show happened. I might have to try and track it down in a box somewhere just because I am trying to scrapbook like all my concert set lists and my ticket stubs and everything and like put the guitar picks from which shows I remember. But I guess with that in mind, now that we got the me covering the tour behind this album, Mike, let's conclude this on as good of a note as we can, I guess.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Vengeance Falls, it's not my favorite Trivium album. I would put it vaguely somewhere in the middle.
I honestly, in hindsight, would put it pretty towards the bottom. Like, I would put it above Ember to Inferno, but just I feel like even a lot of later stuff, even really just pretty much every record after this, I would say is better.
No, that I definitely agree. But I also have it above Ember as well.
Yeah, I feel like that's most appropriate. This album really justifies itself in the grand scheme of things, making the band focus on getting their chorus game flawless. I mean, we could argue that that was already done on previous records anyways, but given that we're in the 2013 to 2014 period when Bring Me the Horizon and Five Finger Death Punch are becoming the big dogs in town for metal, and not just, Metallica, Slipknot, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, headlining stuff like Download. Given that these are the big dogs in town and it's not us focusing on bands like Lamb of God, Killswitch Engage, God forbid, Shadows Fall, Chimera broke up at this point, not focusing on like heavier bands like Hatebreed, or even on the progressive side of things, Dream Theater taking over the realm that Rush had kind of occupied for so long. I would say Trivium are probably the best option as like metal's next huge band to pack out arenas. And this album was really the one to do it, to kind of make them bigger in the US, really. Especially in terms of like radio hits, because I do know Strife did get a fair bit of radio play in the US, but also like while the album does have its faults, like being less progressive and more, like I said, just kind of you picking and choosing your favorites on the album rather than it as a full consistent front to back experience, that while it is still a good front to back experience, it is more for me, I just kind of pick and choose my favorites that I do want to jam when I want to jam them.
Yeah, that's fair. But again, to reemphasize the point I made way at the beginning, there are no bad Trivium records.
Well, it's an experiment that Trivium had to take. And that's why we had to establish that in the Crusade episode, is that Yeah, well, there might be people to this day who do not like the Crusade. You cannot deny it is the first time Trivium decided to take a risk, and while you could make the argument that it was a swing and a miss, if it wasn't for the Crusade, we wouldn't have gotten Shogun. If it wasn't for In Waves, we wouldn't have Vengeance Falls or Silence in the Snow to lead to the Sin in the Sentence. So
Mhm.
the way I see it in the huge grand scheme of things, if we want Trivium to have like really big hooks and choruses and have that nailed down to a T to hook people in, I don't see that as a bad thing, even if it results in more just good songs rather than, an album that I'm picking and choosing over others. I still say we got a new Trivium record, so I'm not going to bitch and complain that much.
Exactly.
But I guess with that in mind, because we do have to loop this into the next episode, we do have to establish this. Two major events while on tour promoting this album basically forced their hand in terms of the style of the next record. And that's basically where I'm going to leave it at because, full disclosure, guys, we're defending Silence in the Snow on the next episode, and people are going to hate what we're going to say.
And here is how little I care.
Here's the only thing I'm going to say that I care. Fuck right off. That's all I got to say.
So, until next time, Nick, where can everyone find you online?
Super Saiyan Death Metal God on Instagram. I mainly post album covers, movies I'm watching, video games I'm playing, concerts I go to, meet and greets I go to. Please go binge like my page. Go shoot me a follow. The algorithm is kind of screwing me over at the moment, but like I said, if you do binge like my page, I do like to do shout outs and pay it forward and follow you back and everything. I'm very active over there, so it would be very much appreciated.
Of course. And you guys can follow me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterbox.com/Coach K42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Blue Sky at Renegade Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Jukebox. We will catch you guys later. Nick?
There is no quiet ending. I'll be taking you with me through blood and through dirt and bone.